Malcolm X said the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. So are you prepared for your next big leadership move? That's the mission of the 19th Annual Women's Leadership Conference on August 31st and September 1st at the MGM Grand Conference Center. Unite with a community of women and men, all professionals committed to growing their skills, their influence, and their impact. So they're ready to step into new horizons in their careers. Because great leaders never stop thinking, learning, and evolving. They're made, not born. To attend this year's Women's Leadership Conference, visit fwle.org today.
Today on CityCast Las Vegas, Nevada Current reporter Michael M.J. Lyle explains why Nevada's driver's license suspension laws are troublesome. Plus, we've got some questions about the LVCVA's recent spending habits. Journalist Naoka Foreman helps us dig into that. And we're debuting a new segment, Good News Friday. You know, there's enough bad out there, so we're bringing the positivity today. And last but not least, in our members-only bonus segment, we've got an update on Boulder City's battle against the data center. It's Friday, July 17th. I'm Jesse Merrick, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. All right, Naoka, MJ, how's it going? How you guys doing today?
Good morning.
It's going good.
Right off the top here, I've got an interesting one for you guys. We've all heard about the diarrhea-causing parasite that's going around. Cyclosporiasis, fun name to say there on the podcast, saved you guys from having to say it. I'm curious, even though we haven't had any outbreaks here in Las Vegas, are you guys on high alert? Because all my friends are talking about it. If their stomach hurts at all, they're like, oh my God, like I think I might be getting it. You know, are you staying away from salads or Taco Bell as this is kind of circling around the country right now?
I was just having this conversation about unused arugula and kale that's just sitting, and cilantro that's just sitting in my fridge. And because I keep looking at it and just like, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And I open the fridge and like, it's not fine. Like, what if it's not fine? And so, yes, I am worried / paranoid, and in this economy, unfortunately, letting some produce go to waste.
I'm having the same experience as Michael. I bought a bag of Caesar salad and it's still in the fridge. I'm like, I'm going to stay away from that. But I do like all of the funny videos that are circulating about, I guess, how much weight people are losing from the parasite.
What a side effect. Hey, there's positives to everything, I guess. Spin zone. It's an easy way to drop those pounds as summers roll around. You know, you can't quite get the summer bod. Go to Taco Bell, eat a bagged, salad or something that, and it'll help kind of push things over the edge. Do not do that. That is not nutrition advice from us here on CityCast Las Vegas. Remain vigilant. Yeah.
I'm one parasite away from my ideal weight.
That's, you know what? Maybe that's what the parasite needs. They need to hire the LVCVA to start doing their marketing for them and push that across.
That's why we pay them the big bucks. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll get to them in just a few minutes because first we got to start talking about our state's driver's license suspension laws. MJ, you wrote an article in the Nevada Current diving into why they're troublesome. Why exactly is that?
Yeah. So for kind of a little bit of context, for years, a lot of civil rights groups and criminal justice organizers have been fighting actually to change our system where we criminalize traffic tickets. So essentially, if you get pulled over for maybe like a broken taillight or something to that effect, a lot of times in previous years, people were, if they weren't paying their fines, they were ending up with bench warrants and ending up in jail. And so in 2021, after a long time of advocating, our state joined a bunch of other states in decriminalizing traffic tickets, making it a civil matter. That legislation went into effect in 2023 and it created a new traffic code. But one of the inadvertent things that happened from that is instead of criminalizing people, which is great to not like be jailed for like low level traffic offenses, but instead of that, people are finding themselves having their driver's license suspended. And so when the Fines and Fees Justice Center did a presentation about this to the Interim Judicial Committee this week, and they said that when they did a request for the DMV data, they saw that 139,000 people had their driver's license suspended. That was as of January. And then in 2025 alone, that is a lot of people, but it's crazy because in 2025 alone, 38,000 people had their license suspended and only less than 5,000 were able to get that reinstated. So we're seeing seeing a lot more people not being jailed, thankfully, but having a driver's license suspended for either failure to pay their fines or failure to appear in court.
When I'm listening to Michael talk about the decriminalization of traffic tickets, what's going on in my mind is the ticket that I got, which was a criminal misdemeanor for walking in the street where a sidewalk is provided, which is a traffic infraction. So I'm wondering, which laws were actually decriminalized, because clearly that's still a criminal misdemeanor.
That's
so
wild.
I'm curious. Yeah, and it was $163. That's what the fee is.
Wait, $163 for walking in the street? And I'm
so
guessing
crazy.
you were just walking next to the curb, correct?
I was walking in the gutter covering a protest.
Wow.
And there was the threat to go to jail as well.
That's definitely over the top for sure. A lot of these things. So like you said, then the fines escalate and all those types of things. And I guess this whole deal, MJ, just kind of seems like it's all doing more harm than good. And I think too, even okay, we've seen people still drive without suspended licenses. It just seems like this is snowballing into some major issues on our roads, right?
I will say that people do want to pay, just anecdotally speaking, that people do want to pay. But the things that we're seeing is for failure to pay, they might not have the funds to it. And so other states have looked at just doing in their court periods kind of financial assessments of people to ensure that they actually are able to pay these fines or access to either financial hardship things. And then for failure to appear, I would say navigating the criminal justice system or the criminal legal system is not easy. There are a lot of barriers. There are a lot of systemic barriers there. There are a lot of barriers people don't think about, from even just parking downtown to childcare to getting to that court. And so there's reasons people do not or fail to appear in court. And so I think part of the solution that other states have looked at, that advocates here in the state want to look at, is making sure that we're limiting as many barriers as possible to help people actually pay and appear before court, because people do overwhelmingly actually do want to be right with the law. It just, the system doesn't make it easier to get there. And I think the question that advocates have in mind is, what is public safety, and is suspending the driver's license of people, is it making you safer as a driver? And overwhelmingly, what it is, it's just causing more hardship to those that are already navigating a very complex and difficult economic time.
I know that they tried to fix this, but Lombardo actually vetoed it. Do you know what the argument was on his side for vetoing that?
So the legislation passed in 2021, but it didn't go into effect in full until 2023, which was a month before the legislative session happened. And so there wasn't really, his argument was there wasn't really enough data essentially to justify a remedy right now. He wrote in his veto message, though some of these ideas contained in the bill may be well intended, we should allow more time to gain a complete understanding of the bill's effect. And so that's why the Fines and Fee Justice Center, that's one of the groups that has been pushing for reform, went back before the interim committee as they're deciding what their 2027 priorities are. That's why they went back and forth and said, we have the data now. We know this is causing a lot of hardship. And so it's time to revisit this. And so his veto of this was essentially, we need more time, understanding, and data, which we now have.
Mm-hmm. I know some of the alternative approaches that we've seen some other states take are things like, a sliding scale based off of, what people's income levels are and things like that. So that obviously these are realistic fines for people to be able to pay. Flexible payment plans in general to avoid having to pay a lump sum. When people are living paycheck to paycheck, you throw a big lump sum at them, all of a sudden that's really going to put a dent in it. And then they're sitting there thinking okay, pay this fine or eat. Yeah. And you don't want to put people in that situation either. Also, too, something as simple as automated text reminders, things like that. Of those solutions, or maybe some other ones that you have, what do you think would be viable things to do to help correct this?
I think that just to answer the question, maybe even community service could be another way, because like you said, some people don't have the income. And then what happens when you do take their license? Now they have to shell out even more money to maybe even get around or to get another license. And when people were jailed because they couldn't pay tickets, some people would just opt to go to jail because they didn't want to pay the tickets because they couldn't. Yeah. So the system itself was already not working. And now we're just going to take licenses. Yeah, there has to be other ways to address traffic infractions.
And MJ, as we close here, I'm just curious, for you in your reporting, or have you heard in other states, like what has been most effective rather than just straight up suspending licenses, or what other options are presented to folks? Like, is there any data out there on that you were able to gather?
Not as far as data, but Solutions is looking at the sliding scale and looking at alternative ways for people to pay. I would say, like, when you get your driver's license suspended, if you want to get it reinstated, you not only have to pay back fines, there's a reinstated fee. And so if you're unable to pay for the fines that have accumulated, and then you have
here's
an
additional
extra
fee. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so I think other states are looking at those fees and taking to heart. Part of the also issue, which we have not really discussed, and I didn't really discuss in my article, but I've discussed in past reporting, is a lot of court systems generate the revenue on these fees. And so that's why a lot of this kind of hinges on the fact that this is a revenue source. And so figuring out better ways to fund our judicial system rather than on the backs of working people and the fines that they have to pay.
Now, speaking of funding, LVCVA clearly has no problem with funding. Nyoka, there was a recent meeting that they had where a lot of their spending habits were revealed. Can you help us dive into some of the things that you pulled from what they're spending money on?
Yeah, I think it's a good segue to focus on how are these authorities using public funding. So what was in the headline recently, and this is still a story that's developing and raising questions about Las Vegas taxpayer dollars. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, they recently committed $100 million to Formula One's Las Vegas Grand Prix. That's not making as many headlines as, let's say, Joe Lombardo getting pulled over and saying, "I'm Joe Lombardo."
With the finger, that's the key to point out. I'm Joe Lombardo, yeah.
Right. This is not getting as much attention, which I think is pretty interesting, considering this isn't the first time that the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority has given Formula One what they call a public sponsorship. The first few sponsorships were a $20 million deal for the races between 2023, 2024, and 25. And following that, there was $10 million for each race in 2026. And also there would be $10 million for 2027. Now they signed this decades-long deal to give F1 $100 million of a public sponsorship.
Yeah, to the F1 thing, I think it's interesting in terms of the sponsorship part. Like, all of us here on the CityCast team were talking about this as we were getting ready for the show. Like, do we not already know that the race is in Las Vegas? Do we need to see it on the billboards or the sides of the race and things? Like, does the Strip and the Sphere not do it? And I know that there's more that goes into it, but that's where I think from the surface level, looking back at it, we're all sitting there scratching our heads like, wait, what? Like, the race is in Vegas. I think it would make more sense if it was something where it's like, this is a sponsorship where you start seeing it at many other races, not necessarily just here in Las Vegas.
That's a really good point, because the trade-off is, they get marketing out of this $100 million public sponsorship. They get more brand awareness. Okay, the casinos and the hotels are going to benefit from this exchange. But also, the question is, why would taxpayers be okay with giving one of the wealthiest sports enterprises a subsidy? Essentially, that's what it is. It's a subsidy. But they call it a public sponsorship because they're expected to gain something from it. So that's where one of the questions lie. Another focus of the money that's been doled out by the LVCVA recently is the pay increase for the CEO, Steve Hill. He got a 6% raise. On top of that, a $240,000 bonus, with his total compensation being $800,000 a year.
A lot of cheddar.
That's so much money.
This man is paid. This man is paid. And I'm not going to hate on the player, but I do have questions about the game.
We want
Because-
everybody to get paid, and I agree. That's a great way to put it. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's what we're doing right now.
Right.
We're hating the game. That's what we're targeting.
We can hate the player a little bit.
MJ over here. Petty MJ has joined the chat.
Listen, I'm not mad at that either. But Steve Hill, he has this reputation for making things happen in Las Vegas. Not even just Las Vegas, in Nevada. He has ties to bringing the Allegiant Stadium, the Raiders, the Gigafactory, making all these things happen. The Vegas Loop, which, has its controversies. The question is, what do lawmakers think about this? The people that we're voting for, the people that have the authority to create laws, regulations, and to ensure that public money not only benefits the global billionaire brand F1 or the billionaire hotel industry. What about $100 million that could have went to transportation? Public transportation.
And I think that's a fair question to have. And so with that in mind, MJ, how do you wrap your head around it, particularly just with the F1 spending? Because we'll talk about Steve Hill and the money thrown there, and just how the LVCVA has worked as a whole here. But I'm curious, diving back into just F1 and that spending there. I've got my thoughts, but I'd love to hear how you wrap your head around the $100 million being thrown there and where a lot of these public funds are being, diverted to.
I think there's so many questions about the players that are at the center of this. It's not just Steve Hill, but also Jamie Aguero, who actually is also making money off of this. You can't throw
He's
a stone in this,
right? For folks
he
at
is
home.
the consultant with Applied Analysis, and you can't really throw a stone in the city, in the state, without seeing him consulting for a lot of different industries. And Applied Analysis gets a $250,000 a year consulting contract with LVCVA, plus another $100,000 a year for special work. And so Guerrero is also doing consulting with F1 itself. And so it just seems like brings up a lot of questions about the players that are economically benefiting off of this large sums of money. And so I also want to shout out the reporting from Alan Snell with LV Sports Biz, because he's been reporting on this diligently about
Alan crushed it on this, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Just the money portion around this and kind of who is reaping the benefits of so much money passing hands. So
no, it definitely is. And I'll say this, and this is coming from a bit of a bias because I'm a sports guy. I cut my teeth in this city as a sports guy, so I will say that I am all for them throwing money at these events. The numbers are eye-popping, don't get me wrong, but I think of what it does for our city. It's one of those things where it's the benefit, I think, maybe outweighs the cost to me in terms of bringing more people here. And I think just because we were in a weird spot of relying so much on tourism, and yes, this is still tourism, but we're bringing more people in for these tentpole events. I like that strategy just because I think it's going to help us long term. But again, I think there needs to be more of a reinvestment, to Nyoka's point, of where the funds that are brought in from that are being sent to. And then when you hear that number thrown out there, when we're talking about Steve Hill and the $800,000 in salary raises and bonuses and all stuff that get thrown out there, that's where the numbers get skewed. And you're like, wait. How are they in reinvesting, back into our roads, our schools, all the different things that need it here with public money and stuff? So I think it's one of those deals where maybe distribute the money a bit better. Before we close here, though, with Steve Hill and the raises and all this stuff, we hear so much about tourism being down here in Las Vegas. At the end of the day, their job is to increase tourism and all those things. I don't want to say, do you think he earned these things? Because like we said, we're hating the game, not necessarily the player, even though maybe there's a little bit of player hating going on in there. And do we think that these raises are warranted given what the job of the LVCVA is supposed to be?
with all due respect to a lot of the power players, they don't run our economy. Who runs economies are casino workers, are the employees. And the employees are struggling right now. They've been struggling for a long time, like with finding adequate housing, with access to transportation, to access to childcare. There's so much struggle going on. And so I think the question for me is the equity distribution, and who gets rewarded and who actually is invested in. And that's an eye-popping figure that he has. He might be the figurehead, but he's not what's making our economy run. It's the workers. And so we have to really ask the question of how are we ensuring that the bedrock of our economy, the workers, are fairly compensated right now, have access to resources. And so if we're not doing that, but we're allowing a figurehead to reap such big rewards and cash benefits, there are so many lingering questions about equity that are just unanswered.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Michael. And Jesse, you said you're a sports guy. I'm
Yeah,
a community girl. And so
exactly.
I
Mhm.
am thinking about what is the real investment to the community. That community being, if this is the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, at what point are the workers prioritized when it comes to
Mhm.
sponsorships, funding, and improving their quality of life? I know that the authority is funded through taxes. What if that money was reinvested into, once again, transportation? People need to get to work. And I remember catching the bus from North Las Vegas to the Wynn or to the Venetian when I worked on the Strip. And now, with weather being the highest it's ever been, the heat being the highest it's ever been, what if we created a more sustainable transportation system with that tax revenue?
Yeah, no, I agree. As you said, Nyoka, it's a developing situation. No doubt we'll be continuing to keep tabs on it as more and more money and just figures come out of LVCVA. Obviously, I think on CityCast Las Vegas here, one of our great pastimes is going after LVCVA when they do things that don't quite make sense to us. So this won't be the last time that we talk about them and the things that they do. All right, so we've gone after driver's license laws and things like that. We've done a little bit of player hating, on whether it's the game or the player themselves. Now let's just bring some good vibes onto the show. So this is a new segment that I threw out there to our executive producer, Layla, and I was like, what about Good News Friday? And so I'm curious for you guys maybe it's something you learned this week about Las Vegas, some news to come out of Vegas, whatever it was that had you just feeling good about our city. I'll go first and then we'll defer to you guys on this one. One thing that I saw was a study from Wallet Hub. They actually just named Las Vegas the #1 city in the country for recreation. This is out of the 100 largest cities in the U.S., and it's not just because of the casinos. They're a big player in this whole thing, but there's a lot more that went into it. The study looked at 47 different metrics, including the availability and cost of recreational activities, park quality, and weather, and Las Vegas topped the list because it ranked first in the entire country for entertainment and recreational facilities. That means things like music venues, amusement parks, zoos, aquariums per capita, all that different stuff. But it continues to go on and include things like basketball hoops, hiking trails, bowling alleys, and sports venues as well. So you guys can see where the Strip and the other things that these casinos do offer factor into that, where I think we might have a little bit of a leg up given the way that our city's organized. But I do think it's interesting overall. I think one thing that was kind of surprising from it is that Las Vegas also ranks among the top cities for affordability in terms of highly rated restaurants. We hear so much about all the prices down on the Strip with the steakhouses and the fancy restaurants and stuff. Apparently, like of the highly rated restaurants, we actually provide a deal. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with off-strip and a lot of chefs opening more, I don't want to say totally budget options, but some budget-friendly options, or a little more friendly than I think maybe some other cities and things like that. Just so you guys have some reference here, Orlando came in second. Surprisingly, Cincinnati came in third, but Henderson also made the list at number 21, and so did North Las Vegas at number 38. So the Valley overall really well represented here in this study, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I agree with like the restaurant part, because you don't have to have an expensive menu to have a fantastic restaurant. You see that with
Yeah.
some of the James Beard nominees from earlier this year. I think of like Calabash. I still haven't been there, unfortunately, but I've heard rave reviews, and their menu is very accessible and very like everything that I've heard is delicious, but at the same time affordable too. And so there are a lot of off-strip options, a lot of cuisine, wide-ranging options that are affordable. And so that makes total sense that we would be recognized for that.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about Las Vegas is that you really don't need to know where to go. You can easily just stumble on a nice place with good service, with good food, with good drinks, with reasonable prices, with a happy hour. But I will say, I miss reverse happy hours.
Yeah,
Yes.
There used to be so many reverse happy
Yes.
hours. Can we
Yeah.
please bring them back? Please, please.
That's number one on the docket. Let's bring it down there. Let's get it going. You bust out the signature form. I'll be one of the first folks to sign that one for you,
Yes.
Nyoka. I am curious though too, as we keep it rolling here in our Good News Friday segment for Nyoka. What's the thing that had you feeling good this week about Las Vegas?
I am just happy about the nonprofit space in Las
Mhm.
Vegas. They are consistently focused on closing gaps in our community. And one organization that had an event this week at the historic Westside Education and Training Center was the Just One Project. And they were recently gifted $100,000 from two organizations, NV Energy and Southwest Gas. Both of their foundations gave them $100,000 apiece to continue their Groceries on the Go program.
That's cool.
What they do is they have a bus. It's outfitted as a grocery store, and they go into communities that are historically deprived of grocery stores with good produce and nutrient rich food. And once again, these are communities that are food deserts, so they may be more than a mile away from a grocery store that has all of the necessities. And so this organization is closing that gap, and they had a large event this week on Tuesday with some local leaders and the leaders of that business.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, food insecurity is something that nobody should be dealing with in this day and age. So I love seeing something like that. Shout out to, what was the name of the nonprofit again?
The Just One Project.
Yeah, shout out to the Just One Project doing some good stuff there. Obviously, the historic West Side, we recently did a show about the revitalization efforts going on down there. So love seeing work done around that way. MJ, what has you fired up this week here about Las Vegas?
So actually, I was excited to hear the Insecure 10th anniversary tour is coming to Las Vegas. They announced this week. Insecure is like one of my favorite TV shows of the last few years. It's Issa Rae created this fantastic 5-season show. And so they're celebrating the anniversary of the first season. And I'm so excited that Las Vegas is on the list for this tour, because sometimes Las Vegas, unfortunately, gets skipped over in a lot of these events. And so to be on this tour, to see all the characters of this, I know this is a super niche topic. I don't know everyone. I know my friends and I are super excited about this tour because we love the show.
Yeah.
You should check it out. Jess.
I don't know the show. Nayoka, the way you reacted, it sounded like you know the show, Nayoka. I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. So you must be excited about this as well, that they're coming to town.
Absolutely. And I didn't know anything about it. I heard it first right here.
Go. Breaking news brought to you by
Breaking
MJ.
news.
Exactly.
You're welcome.
And Issa Rae, she's everybody's best friend. She's my best friend. Michael, I'm sure she's your best friend. She's some of my girlies' best friend. Because her humor is just so on point for the times. So, yeah, I'm excited that that's going to be out here. I need to find out how to make my way in.
It's time now to dive into our members-only bonus segment. Today, we've got an update for you on Boulder City's battle against a data center that recently avoided public deliberation by getting a green light to build on public land instead. But you're only going to hear the latest on this story and our analysis of it if you're one of our CityCast Las Vegas neighbors. So, if you want the latest on this story and access to any and all of our bonus segments, head to membership.citycast.fm/Las Vegas to become one of our neighbors and gain access to this members-only bonus segment and take advantage of all the other great perks that come with being one of our CityCast Las Vegas neighbors. All right, MJ, Nayoka, this was fun today. We definitely hit on a lot. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. Our executive producer is Layla Muhammad. Our creative producer, Jacob Solis. Our newsletter editor is Rob Katchel-Reese. And I'm your host, Jesse Merritt. Music is by OG Moose. Our ad music is by Sven Lindvall and Sarah from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. We record this show on the traditional homelands of the Nuuvi, the Southern Paiute people. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our free morning newsletter as well. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm/Las Vegas. We'll be back on Monday morning with more news from around the city. Until then, have a great weekend and take care.